Electric sound with every single word. You never gonna frown. From the Netline Giants to the Madison Square. Bobo and Cramer, yeah, this man beginning there. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bobo and Cramer, yeah, the sound so loud. Taking on the world, and the no gonna stop with that New York grit. They're rising to the top. Feel alive. Yeah, the best in the house is where the legends play. Bobo and Cramer leading the way. Breaking plastic slides, shout it out loud. And the best in the house, we're rocking the town. And the best in the house, we're rocking the town. And the best in the house, we're rocking the town. And the best in the house, we're rocking the town.
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just relieved of not having to see political ads on TV and on YouTube every fucking second. All right, it's regardless of who you voted for, we can all agree those political ads are annoying.
It is over, my friend. You are 100% right. Now, the next thing everybody's going to be wondering about is, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and everything. So we got a lot to look forward to over the next month or two. Yeah.
Exactly, and a bunch of annoying days even before Christmas. Especially at work, because it's sometimes too to that radio station that plays Christmas songs. Sometimes having to hear that annoying Mariah Carey song a lot.
Well, it is that time of year again, so eventually we'll be hearing it. I still haven't heard it yet, but it's coming. So
I can only take 25 days of that. Really, these radio stations, could you just please not start until December 1st? I would be happy if they did that.
I'm sure many of them have already started.
Yeah, because my mother in the kitchen, she has that radio station playing in the kitchen at that time of year. So it's like I hear that all the fucking time. I want to shoot myself every time I hear that song.
Well, it definitely is that time of year, but we're still not there yet. November 6th here, the day after Election Day, as me and Bo are recording our show here on this Wednesday evening. Got a lot to get into tonight as, obviously the baseball offseason is upon us. And you know what? Let's just start there. As by the last time we were recording a show, the Yankees were going into Game 5 of the World Series with a chance to extend it and send it to L.A. Now, the Yankees had a 5-0 lead in this game and were looking like world beaters. It looked like the Yankees were well on their way to sending this thing to L.A. and going back just as the Mets did, taking it 3-2, making it a close series, making the Dodgers sweat a little bit. But boy, did the Yankees cough this one up, Dan, as up 5-0 in the 5th inning. A couple of errors, one by Gleyber Torres, and a very glaring error in center field by Aaron Judge. By the way, the only error Aaron Judge committed all season. He had 0 errors in the regular season and 0 errors to the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Commits his first error in Game 5 of the World Series, and it basically cost the Yankees the game. I mean, you can't really say it cost them the series because being in that position in the first place pretty much did, losing the first 3 games. But man, what a brutal loss for Yankees and Yankees fans. And they had their ace on the hill, too. We're going to talk about him in a minute, too. But, Dan, what did you think about Gerrit Cole, Aaron Judge, and the Yankees spitting the bit in Game 5?
Well, all I could think of when looking at that game, Eastside Dave probably losing his shit. I could literally hear the sound of his voice in my head. Having been around Eastside Dave and knowing and even before knowing Eastside Dave personally and being on the show, knowing who he was since the Ron and Fez days, hearing his voice and getting familiar with him, how he reacted to that game, I just knew he probably lost his shit when that happened.
Well, you're 100% right, too, actually, because I don't know if you've had a chance to catch up on it yet.
I have seen the show.
the Davy Max Sports Program. Who, if you're wondering and you haven't caught it yet, go out and do yourself a favor. Watch our buddy Eastside Dave, the Davy Max Sports Program, a brilliant sports show. Him and Roy Harder and Rob and all those guys over there. They had a great guest on. If you remember the old Ron and Fez show, Bronx Johnny was on there. So really fun show to listen to. But Dan, you're 100% right. As Eastside Dave was the face of all frustrated Yankee fans, and obviously letting us know how frustrated he was, and how he felt the Yankees came up short, which they did. It was an easy path to the World Series, which me and you talked about, having to take down the Royals and the Guardians, who were decent teams, but nothing to write home about. But as soon as the Yankees ran into a really big, complete team, they just couldn't hang with them.
Yeah, exactly. And I just have to say, seeing that, the crazy part, remember going into that World Series, I said that, that I had a feeling the Dodgers were going to win that at 5. I was like completely right about the outcome. They had won it in 5 games. And knowing my luck, if I placed a bet in Las Vegas, I would have been in debt. There would have been probably mob guys after me. That's how much debt I would have been if I tried betting an insane amount like that, knowing my luck.
Well, you know the deal, Dan. You can't, if you would have bet on it and you had money riding on it, it always changes the outcome, especially with us Met fans. But you know who also is going to end up being in debt after this series and this World Series as well, my friend? It could be the Yankees, who, they have been pinching their pennies a lot lately over the last decade or so under the leadership of Hal and Hank Steinbrenner, even though Hank's passed away since then. But Hal's still hanging around, and right now they're going to have to open it up, which they did for Gerrit Cole, who, as soon as the as soon as the playoffs ended, Cole and a whole bunch of other free agents had the opportunity to opt out of their contracts. Cole did take that, which I kind of found surprising, especially the way the season ended in such a brutal fashion for him and the Yankees. But it worked out for him as he opted out of his deal. And the only way the Yankees could make that contract guaranteed again was by adding on an extra year at an extra $36 million to his original deal. So the Yankees have done that. So what was once a 9-year, $320 million contract becomes about a 10-year, $360 million contract, which oddly enough is pretty much the same deal they gave Aaron Judge. So very interesting how things worked out with Cole there. What do you think, Dan? If you were Cole, would you have taken the risk of opting out there?
I think that'd be a big risk if to take the opt out of that one.
But but he did get that extra year, so I guess overall he did make the right decision, right?
Yeah, he ended up making the right decision, but I don't think I would chance.
Yeah, me too. Me too. You and me are definitely not willing to risk the 4 years at about $120 million that he was certainly willing to risk. But he ended up getting the extra $36 million out of it. And as a matter of fact, it's still not even a done deal yet, as they could even rework this contract further and add another year or two if they need, or there are other ways they could hammer this deal out. But if it ends up just being the extra year and an extra 36 mil, that gets it done too. So it's all in the court of the Yankees and Gerrit Cole right now. But as far as we know, Cole will be staying with the Yankees for the long term. However, this guy, at least at the moment, will not be staying long term, as Juan Soto officially hit free agency a couple of days after the World Series. He fulfilled his obligations to the Yankees, and now he is ready for all the teams. They asked him in the clubhouse immediately following the Yankees Game 5 World Series loss what his stance was with the Yankees or the Mets or any team. And he said, hey, I'm open to all 30 teams. I'm not going to talk to anybody, and I'm basically going to be going to the highest bidder. So you can't blame him, man. That's the free agent market and work, right?
Yeah. I just have a scary feeling about Juan Soto, that he's going to be one of those idiots that extends this all the way to spring training. Not going to be ready in front of time season. Going to get to a very slow start. Who knows how many games it's going to cost us?
I disagree, Dan. I think
He just
Juan
looks like he
Soto,
has a big old ego free agents.
yeah, but Juan Soto is the guy that's going to set the bar for free agency this offseason. So to be honest, look, the GM meetings are this week in I forget exactly where they are, but then they have the other meetings next month. I believe it's December 5th. I'll tell you this right now, Dan. I guarantee a month from today, December 6th, where we're sitting, Juan Soto will be signed to a team, and we will know where he went.
Yep. I just have a feeling at least by December 5th, maybe Christmas the latest.
Yeah, I mean, the latest. This will not be going in to next year to find out where Soto is, because he's going to set the market. So they're going to make sure that he's off the board as early as possible. And, one of the teams that's going to be gunning for him right now is our Mets. And the Mets are getting prepared for a pretty big offseason right now. We heard from team president David Stearns about whether they were going to hire a GM, because this has been discussed ever since his hiring, and really even before that, who the Mets' next GM is going to be. Billy Epler was their last one where he got fired, and actually really didn't even get fired. He got removed by Major League Baseball because he was suspended for a year. So I don't expect to see Billy Epler back with the Mets. However, I do expect to see, the Mets at least keeping an eye out for other front office talent, guys that David Stearns could possibly have his eye on. And the only way that they're going to get a guy like that is if they bring somebody in that's not a GM yet and then give them the title of GM. So I could see, because even David Stearns kind of spoke about that, where he said, that I don't have anybody specific in mind right now, but if somebody does happen to come across our purview and we view them as a good fit in the organization, as long as they're not a GM yet, you could offer them that role, and you'd have, nobody in baseball is going to stand in the way of a guy becoming a GM for the first time. So, if you give a guy a lower position in your organization, other teams aren't going to be as willing to let these guys go. But, it's good to know that David Stearns is still keeping an eye out for other front office guys that could help the team along,
Yeah, that's at least good to know. But what I would love to see David Stearns is finally go after the big fish.
Well, the big fish is Soto, and you're right about that, man. And the Mets got a couple of big fish that they're going to have to be hoping to hook this offseason as well, as we found out that the guy that really formed himself into our ace, at least from June on this season, no doubt about it, Sean Manaea was the guy that all Met fans looked to in that rotation to set the tone. And Sean Manaea went out there and earned his contract. Last year he signed a 2-year deal with the Mets for $28 million, basically getting $14 million last year and $14 million this year. So he forego $14 million guaranteed dollars this year to test the free agent market. So it's something the Mets are going to have to figure out too. Now, the other part of this is why it makes even more sense that Manaea opted out, is that because he opted out, now the Mets had to extend the qualifying offers. The Mets extended qualifying offers to 3 different players. Sean Manaea was one of them, which it makes sense that, why would Sean Manaea opt into his contract for $14 million when he knows that the Mets, if they extend him a qualifying offer, which of course they're going to, they're not going to let him walk for nothing, that they have to offer him $21 million. So it totally makes sense on Manaea's part. I totally get it. And the other two, I think the Mets are just covering their bases, where, okay, you give the qualifying offer to Pete Alonso just in case that you're not able to bring him back. Maybe, some other team jumps in and gives him more than you're comfortable with, or maybe Pete just wants to leave. Then at least you get a draft pick back for him. And it's the same thing with Luis Severino. You give him that qualifying offer, keep your fingers crossed. Maybe you could keep him. But if not, at least you get draft pick compensation back for him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think, Dan? If you were sitting in the GM chair, would you have extended all the qualifying offers to these guys just to cover all your bases? Or, would you be willing to just let a guy like Severino or even Manaea potentially walk?
I would extend a qualifying offer to these guys.
Yeah, just to cover your bases, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because especially too, one guy that you want to make sure has as much draft pick compensation or draft picks in his back pocket as possible is David Stearns. We've seen what he does with it in the past. He's pretty good talent evaluator, so I do have high hopes that hey, I I like their ability to bring those guys back, and really I want to see them bring back 2 out of those 3 guys. One last thing on that before we move on from some baseball here, Dan. If it was your decision right now, out of those 3 guys, you could only bring back 2. Who are you bringing back?
It would probably be Sean Manaea and Pete Alonso.
Yeah, that's exactly where I am too. Alonso and Manaea. I would love to see Manaea back in this rotation next year, especially if the Mets. Let's get a little crazy here for a second. Where let's think about a situation where we have a rotation next year. If maybe the Mets go out and who's the Baltimore ace again? That's a free agent. Now, I
Corbin
forget his name.
Burns.
Yes, Corbin Burns. So let's say the Mets go out there and sign Corbin Burns. Then you've got Burns 1, Manaea 2, Senga 3, maybe Peterson 4, and then whoever you want to throw in there for the 5 role right there. I'd say, Dan, if you're gonna give me those top 4, that's a pretty damn good rotation. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that next year we'll have Senga back, we'll have one of our best pitchers back, and we'll have Corbin Burns. We'll finally have an ace. I feel like that was our weakness in the playoffs, especially when we were facing the Dodgers. That was our weakness, was this team didn't have an ace.
Yeah. And, no disrespect to Severino, no disrespect to Quintana or Manaea, but those guys are not on the Corbin Burns or, as we're accustomed to, the Jacob deGrom level ace guy. That's, those guys are 5-6 innings pitchers that are probably more comfortable in the 2 to 3 slot in the rotation than a 1A guy. And, hey, Corbin Burns is that, and let's keep our fingers crossed that maybe the Mets can make something happen there. Yeah, man, we're getting close. There's going to be some fireworks going off in free agency any day now.
Yep, and I'm hoping this time we actually talk to Pete Alonso. Not like the last time we lost Jacob deGrom, didn't even talk to him hardly much. Actually make a legitimate offer to Pete Alonso. Make a legit offer.
Yeah, they better keep. I gotta say, I'm gonna be very angry especially after the playoff run he had, if Pete Alonso left. I'm gonna be very, very mad.
Yeah, and I just have a feeling they're gonna make they're gonna make an offer to him. That's pretty good.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah, they're gonna make an offer. Yeah. I do not want to repeat of the tragedy of 77. All those stories I hear about 77. I don't want to experience that.
Well, hey, we already experienced it with deGrom in a way, so at least it wouldn't be trade deadline. If you dumping a guy off, like if the Mets had traded either deGrom back in 22 or if they had traded Alonso at this deadline, it would have left a really bad taste in your mouth. And look, as bad as letting deGrom go was last year, Met fans got over it, unfortunately. Although, did you hear these rumors now too that Texas is talking about shopping deGrom, and the Mets are one of the teams that were rumored to be in on it?
I heard rumors, but I'm not really buying it because I don't know how true the rumor is. If there's maybe some heat to the rumor, maybe I'd consider it. How many years is our left on that deal?
I think there's 4 years left.
Maybe I'd consider it, depending how much there is left on that deal, because I feel like we're going. Maybe I feel like deGrom could maybe have. He kind of showed a little bit flash of the pan when he came back. He probably would.
I would think about it, but since we would be absorbing so much of that money, because let's not forget he's still making $36 million a year now. I wouldn't be giving up any prospects for him. I mean, I'm really just giving you something maybe low-level guys, but the main thing the Mets would be giving them is the financial flexibility and taking that money off their hand, right?
Yeah. Maybe a deal like that, maybe because I know they could handle the money. That'd be open to bringing him back. I feel like he maybe if there's one place he'd probably be agreed to a trade to, it would probably be the Mets because he at least knows what he's shown he can handle it.
Yeah.
So I'd be welcome to that. It'd be like a big thing. Plus that it'd be a nice feel good story to see him come back, and all of a sudden that unfinished business with us.
It would. That's true. So,
It'd be cool. He would almost. I feel like if he was to be traded back to the Mets and have that success that he had this first time with the Mets, it would be like he would almost certainly at least there'd be the number 48 hanging there with the retired numbers.
well, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of I got a lot of mixed feelings on that right now, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
But I think
yeah.
I feel though overall I feel like right now his current legacy with the Mets, I feel like he's at least got an induction into the Mets Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean that's a slam dunk. You're right about that. But all right, let's turn our attention to a little football now here, Dan. As let's start off with my Jets, who, if you're watching this on YouTube today, a week ago today, the Jets went out and beat the Texans 21-13 on Thursday Night Football on Halloween. They improved their record to 3-6, which is, not too good, but it's better than 2-7, which they would have been if they lost. And hey, the Jets did make some moves over the last 24 hours or so too, because not only was yesterday the day of the presidential election, but yesterday was also the NFL trade deadline day. And on that trade deadline day, the Jets decided to turn around and trade wide receiver Mike Williams to the Pittsburgh Steelers, for a 5th-round pick in the 2025 draft. Now, I've got a lot of different feelings on this. I think the Jets kind of really didn't give Mike Williams enough of a shot, to be honest. But, hey, look, it looks like maybe him and Rodgers didn't have the best mojo. It didn't work out for whatever reason. Okay, I got no problem with that. What I don't like is that you turned around and traded him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they just lost to. So now you're going to be going, look, if the Jets right now, they're going to have to go on a really big run if they want to make the playoffs. They're going to have to go on a winning streak. And if we're even going to talk about that, the Jim Morris style playoffs, if we're going to even talk about that right now, then and you want us to believe, then why are you trading a wide receiver to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are in your direct competition for the playoffs? That really doesn't seem to make too much sense, right, Dan?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. You'd think they would just trade him to an NFC team, if anything.
Yeah, you'd think that. I mean, I would have a lot less of a problem with it if they did trade him to an NFC team, but hey, that's neither here nor there. That's it's done in the books, but very
and you better hope this doesn't bite you guys in the ass.
Hey, that's what I'm worried about, man. Or wouldn't it be typical Jets, Dan? So let's say the Jets go on a crazy run. It's the craziest run that I've seen in a decade as a Jets fan. It's kind of like our Mets went on a run at the end of the year. The Jets go out crazy. They win out. They make the playoffs. They go 11-6. They don't lose for the rest of the year. Then in the wild card round, it's the Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And wouldn't it be typical Jets for Mike Williams to go out there and rip the Jets' ass open, right?
Yeah, exactly. I have a weird feeling it's going to happen to you guys. And the weird part is, I have a weird feeling that you guys are probably going to rely on the McDonald's mascot to get your mojo on as well. If that's the case.
Hey, I'll bring Grimace over. I'll bring the the Hamburglar, whatever they want.
Well, I think probably for you guys, since the Grimace is pretty much, at this point, his legacy is with the Mets. I feel like in sports teams. So I feel like you guys would have to bring in the Hamburger.
I'll take him. I'll take the Hamburglar. Let's go. Let's steal some victories, man. Let's go. Now, another question about the Jets too that I find very interesting right now, Dan, is that Well, actually, first, before we even get into that, because that'll be the last thing that'll be what we wrap up the Jets talk with before we move on to the Giants. But real quick, Dan, what did you think of that crazy Garrett Wilson jump man catch? Everybody's calling it now, where it was shades of Odell Beckham Jr. from 2014. I mean, that's one of the most fantastic catches I've ever seen.
Well, when I'm watching that game, I'm thinking like you guys are probably going nuts for seeing that. The other thing I'm thinking is probably like similar to the Odell Beckham catch, some of the gear that he wore during that catch. I think, including maybe the ball. I think jersey was sent to the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. I think something similar is going to happen with that with this with gear that Garrett Wilson wore during that catch. Probably some of that stuff is already being shipped to has already made its way to Canton. The other thing, I have a feeling you Jet fans are probably on some website, maybe some Jet. I don't know what websites that Jet fans usually run to go like to get like these fan made merch or something like that are very known for that. You know, similar to how the Mets have the Seven Line Army. But I don't know. But I'm sure someone somewhere they're making T-shirts with the silhouette of that catch.
Oh, definitely. You know the Jets are going to be pumping that out too, no doubt about it. Especially as that catch lives on in Jets and NFL lore. You're 100% right about that, Dan. Now, one last thing before we move on, because obviously the Jets now they're getting set. They're going to be playing the Arizona Cardinals at 4:25 on Sunday. So that's a big game for the Jets. The Cardinals are 5-4. They're a tough team. They're coming off a big victory against the Bears. They blew them out 29-9. Jets coming off a nice win too. Obviously, the 21-13 win we were just talking about. So, you know, are Kyler Murray and the Cardinals that awesome of a team? You know, I don't know, but they definitely are a significant challenge for the Jets too, because when you look at a couple of guys they have on that team, obviously John Connor is a tough runner at running back, and obviously they got Marvin Harrison Jr. as their top wide receiver. So you got a couple of playmakers there. You got a young quarterback with some speed. So always dangerous. The Jets have to be nervous about that. But as a Jets fan, what I'm not even sure if I should be nervous about yet is how last night's presidential election is going to be affecting my team. Because let's not forget, with when Donald Trump won back in 2016, he appointed Jets owner Woody Johnson to go to England as our ambassador to the country of England. So he was over there for 4 years. So during that time period, Woody Johnson appointed his brother Chris Johnson to be the guy that runs the team. Now, Chris Johnson is the genius that hired Adam Gase as the head coach. And Adam Gase is also the guy that, led Chris Johnson to be bringing in Joe Douglas, who has a record of 30-62 as a general manager. So Chris Johnson doesn't exactly have a great track record. I do feel like he at least recognizes that he made those mistakes, because word is from other Jet fans that have spoken to him is that he's very contrite. He understood and specifically said those were mistake hires and everything. Not necessarily Joe Douglas, but more Adam Gase on that. But what do you think, Dan? Do you think now that Trump's back in, do you think that Woody is going to go back to England? Or do you think maybe Woody says, hey, you know what? I had fun last time, but I got to stick around and see what the deal is with my Jets now?
I think he kind of wants to see this through the Jets winning the whole. He wants to see through the whole Jets being a success. I think he dealt with enough of it. It's like it's only so much you can go through is being ambassador to England. It's kind of stressful. I think eventually he wants to spend money he wants to be back in the United States.
I hope you're right. Because even though I did like Woody being over in England, I didn't mind it. The Jets owner being the ambassador to England, that was kind of cool. Yeah, but then you realize, like, oh, okay, so now nobody's actually running our team. So very interesting. It's gonna be real interesting to see how that plays out with the Jets and how it affects them. And Woody Johnson, when he left the last time, the Jets were a disaster. The Jets aren't exactly in a great spot right now either, but at least with Aaron Rodgers, they have a couple of Hail Marys of hope. So, we'll have to see where this goes and where Woody goes from there. But
Yeah,
we'll take
but at the
yeah.
same time, as someone running the Jets, it'd be nice to be that I finally don't have to make that joke that I won't. Even though I'm a Giants fan, I would miss being able to make that joke that the Jets are owned by a guy named Woody Johnson, and they
Well,
run
well, either
they
way,
run they run a line of products called Johnson and Johnson. At least I can have it.
they're always going to be owned by Woody Johnson.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
never selling them. The only
yeah,
thing is he just wouldn't be in the country for a couple of years.
yeah. At least at least I'd still have the Johnson and Johnson joke.
Yes,
If that if not the
never
Woody
gets old.
Johnson, which if not the Woody Johnson, which is also a funny one.
Yes, yes. Now let's take a look over at the other side of MetLife now, Dan, as you were actually at this game as the Giants ended up taking a tough loss on the chin to the really upstart Commanders, which, by the way, Dan, did you see the trade the Commanders made on deadline day where they ended up trading, I think it was a third and a fourth round pick next year for the Saints' top cornerback, Marshawn Lattimore, who, if you're not familiar with him, Marshawn Lattimore is one of the best cornerbacks in football. So you
That,
stick him on this Commanders team that had an iffy secondary, suddenly the Commanders are looking a lot more dangerous. What did you think about that? And what did you think about the tough loss on Sunday, too?
well, for one thing, that's pretty impressive that they pulled off that trade. That's gonna be they're gonna be a legit contender for this
Yeah,
whole
they
thing.
are
Probably.
7-2 right now for the first time since 1996.
Yeah. The other thing I have to say about the Giants game, of course, this happened on the way to the Giants game. Didn't happen at all during the Mets playoff run because I knew the MTA decided to do this thing on the number 7 train. Have these grimace decals on the 7 train, right? The grimace train, and it's very random luck of catching that train with the whole grimace livery on it. I didn't get that luck, but on the way to the Giants game, as I'm with side grabbing the number 7 train, couple stops to 42nd Street, transferring at Times Square to catch the 1, 2, or 3 to the Penn Station. I ended up on the grimace train.
Nice. That's cool.
After the playoff run, I guess they still haven't removed it, or maybe however long the deal is, or something, or however long it takes them to remove this. They're allowed to have this on this advertised on the train. But I saw there the image of the likeness of Grimace on the 7 train. And then of course, they went there, grabbed the Jersey train, they went to MetLife Stadium, of course. But anyway, I was at the game. They gave out Lawrence Taylor bobblehead. That hold on, let me get. I actually forget it. I'm not gonna get it now. But you saw it on the show. You saw both see pictures of it. The Lawrence Taylor bobblehead. They gave out to the first 25,000. I got one, and that was pretty cool. The bobblehead of one of my favorite Giants of all time. They were also wearing those old school uniforms from the 80s and the most of the 90s. That we had won 2 Super Bowls in. And as you saw in the picture, I was wearing my throwback LT jersey. Unfortunately, the game turned out to be a disaster. There was they just that fumble, whatever the heck you call it, in the opening drive. Then all of a sudden, literally no defense and a couple of bad calls from the referees. And I was scratching my head, even wondering if Daniel Jones is the right answer, wondering if this team has any fight in them. It's over, it feels like. Our season's over, it feels like. That was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, 2-7. That's a hit with the Jets too. I was really wishing and praying to avoid a 2-7 start. 2-7 kind of is a nail in the coffin, although it's not, because let's be honest, the Giants still have 8 games left. So if you win the next 8, which is unlikely but still possible, they could go 10-7. So there is a shot, but I agree with you. For all intents and purposes, it really is over. Now, on that note, though, Dan, I wanted to ask you: do you agree or disagree with the Giants general manager Joe Shane not really making any moves at the NFL trade deadline? Like, I felt like there are a couple of options for the Giants to unload a couple of guys that were on, 1-year deals that are not going to be here next year anyway. So I think a lot of Giant fans were kind of scratching their heads a little bit that they didn't do anything to pick up a couple of draft picks here and there.
Yeah, I just feel like they should have made some trades to pick up some draft capital. That one infuriated me. I had a little. I was like, I on and off looked at my phone, looked at various NFL feeds, including as I was also looking at my, checking up all the MLB offseason hot stove news. I was checking out the some of the NFL trades maybe made. I was shocked they didn't trade for any draft capital.
Yeah, it was a little surprising. I thought there were a couple of guys that they had a chance to flip that they chose not to. Another interesting thing too is that say what you want about the Giants right now. Are they, one of the better teams in football? No. Or do they have a losing record? Yes. But when you look at their locker room is pretty good for the most part. These guys get along. They like each other. That's a reason why I kind of thought it was an interesting move for Shane to go out there and not trade, but release their cornerback, Nick McCloud. Now, Nick McCloud's not a guy that many fans know. He's a, bottom of the roster kind of guy, more of a special teams player at this point. But he's a guy that had a very strong, tight relationship with Brian Burns, the Giants' new pass rushing linebacker. And, they were interviewing Burns immediately after finding out about his buddy Nick McCloud getting cut. And Brian Burns was not happy about it. I mean, he acted professional. He didn't, lash out or anything like that. But you could tell he was bummed out. He wasn't happy that, one of the guys that he really enjoys playing with got cut. Now, look, I know it's not that big a deal. Like we said, the guy's one of the more a lower roster kind of guy. But look, in a season that's going off the rails right now in a lot of ways, and you have one of your young stars on your team that's saying, hey, I like this guy, even if he's probably going to be gone after this year, wouldn't you want to keep him around for the rest of the year just to keep your young star happy,
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't want to do that. You want to keep the young star happy, and it Burns. Who's probably going to play a big factor next year if we really have a bounce, turn a 180 from this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, if the Giants are going to turn things around at any point in the next couple of years, Brian Burns is going to be a big part of it because the Giants gave up some pretty big capital to get him and then gave him a pretty nice big deal to keep him around here for a long time. So, that's kind of why I thought it was a little surprising that a guy that, and that's two things right there. That's either Joe Shane knowing that he's close with Burns and just saying, hey, Burns, I like you a lot, but it's for the betterment of the team that we got to move on from this guy and bring in somebody more productive. Or it's a worst case of Joe Shane having no feel for the locker room, having no feel for these guys on a personal level, and just cutting a guy that, it might have made sense on paper, but when you look at the facts of the situation, it might have been a better move to keep him around and keep the guys happy,
No, might have been. I think it may have been more the first one.
Yeah. So, all right, you're probably right about that. And last thing on the Giants before we take a look at their game next week in Munich is that wide receiver Darius Slayton took a tough hit in the last game, still not practicing. He was diagnosed with a concussion. He didn't return, and he has not returned to practice this week at all either. So fingers crossed that maybe he comes out of the concussion protocol.
Yeah, I feel like this one maybe it's really question if we're gonna really make it because it's pretty much like there's this one loss and we're pretty much done. And I feel like it's impossible if we're gonna go 8-0. So I feel like maybe Darius Slayton is probably not gonna be, for all intents and purposes, making the trip to Munich. I feel like a concussion You can't have him making that trip to New York. It's a long flight.
Yeah, it would be a smart move just to say, hey, you know what, Darius, you stay here in the States and get healthy. And if you're at a concussion protocol when we get back, then we'll see you when we get back from the Munich game. Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. Probably not a smart move to bring him on a cross Atlantic flight. And yeah, it's setting up for Giants Panthers Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Munich, Germany.
Yep.
The
I'll,
two and
I'll
seven
be.
Giants against the 2-7 Panthers. Battle for maybe the number one spot in the draft next year for the NFC, at least right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess people have to get used to me yelling at the TV a lot earlier in the morning
Yeah,
than, 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 than,
they,
than they usually are.
are
And I'll be eating my breakfast as I'm watching the Giants game. Maybe I'll have some blueberry pancakes. I'll be
possible.
like, Mom, make later longer. Make me some pancakes, Mom.
Well, what did you say? The blueberry pancake stand, because blueberries are a standalone fruit.
Yeah, that's a little fruit, but they go well on pancakes.
Well, a little shout out to Ron and Fez there. Fezzy, rest in peace, Fez. Rest in peace.
Yep.
And so yeah, Dan. So yeah, definitely interesting matchup there on Sunday morning for you. 2-7 Giants against the 2-7 Panthers. Either way, one last thing before we move on from that. Are you in full tank mode right now, or are you still rooting for a win? Because I know a lot of Giant fans that would much rather see their team lose on Sunday than win right now.
I feel it's bad mojo really rooting for a tank, even though at this point they feel like they just might as well tank. There would be no love lost if you just tank the rest of the way. Even though
Yeah,
I've seen, even though I've seen how this, thank God there's no draft lottery. Then I have
yeah,
to worry about
it's
it. It's like,
true.
like the NBA. Because remember the Knicks when we were going through so many years of the Knicks being a horrible team, and it seemed like they couldn't even tank right.
Yep,
They
yep.
didn't. They didn't take enough the first time to try to. I remember at one point I thought, oh, maybe we tank enough. We're going to get this guy named LeBron James. It turned out we were. Turned out there was another team that was even better at tanking, the Cavaliers, which were like, holy shit! They talk about a master class in tanking. The 2003 Cleveland Cavaliers are forever the masters of tanking. They need to do a
Oh, well,
documentary.
the Knicks weren't tanking at that point, though.
But they were not making the playoffs. I know that. They
No,
were a
but they were
better
like a
team.
37-38 win team, so they weren't going to come anywhere near LeBron.
But I just feel like if you want to do a documentary about sports teams tanking, the 2003 Cleveland Cavaliers are forever the masters of tanking for a top draft pick.
Oh, then look, they tanked again in 2014, got themselves Kyrie Irving, and then signed LeBron back. So you're probably right; they are the masters of tanking.
Yeah,
No doubt
yeah. Because
about that.
I heard they were obsessed with trying to get LeBron James. Like it was literally on the wall that they were tanking. I heard.
Yeah, it was their owner, Dan Gilbert. He wanted him.
Yes.
And
They need to do a documentary about that. The other thing I have to say, I I feel like I'm I'm just gonna it's gonna be a disaster of a year that I'm just gonna be glad it's over. That I might as well just watch the rest of the Giants season with the Mystery Science Theater 3000 robots.
it'd be more entertaining that way, unfortunately. And believe me, as a Jet fan, I can say that with experience. Um, But yeah, Dan, you know what? There with that, let's turn our attention to a team that hopefully is going to give us a little bit more joy this year than our football teams. Let's talk about the New York Knicks for a couple of minutes. As the Knicks, they are off to an
Oh,
up and down start so far. They dropped to 3-3 after a tough loss in Houston on what was it, Monday night, 109-97. They lost that game. It was kind of ugly. And the one thing I'm starting to notice though, Dan, is we're starting to see the effects of not having Dante DiVincenzo anymore off the bench. And the Knicks bench is starting to look a lot more thin than it did the last year or two. And, it's looking to me like, unfortunately, that depth might be an issue for the Knicks for this season. So, I think the GM and everybody really has to be on their heels now and be on the lookout for any kind of talent, and not just these D League guys and G League guys we see the Knicks signing just to fill out the roster. They're going to have to come up with a deal, maybe for a draft pick, maybe not, no matter what the deal is, to try to bring in some, bench level NBA talent and fill this roster out here.
Yeah, I feel like the Knicks are going to have to do that. They're going to have to bring in some depth. Nothing worse than seeing a team that had a magical run like this, and you think, oh, they're going to build on this, be even bigger the next year, and then they kind of are missing that kind of whatever it was that whatever it is got them there.
Yeah, just that
And
depth, because that's one thing the Knicks had. The Knicks had depth last year. They had a lot of
and
depth.
they need
They could really mix and match the best of them.
they need to make a depth trade.
Yeah, well, you got to make a trade and try to bring in some outside help. And although that outside help's not coming tonight, as the Knicks tip off, well, actually they tipped off already 15 minutes ago against the Atlanta Hawks. Knicks at Hawks get hoping to get a little revenge for getting knocked out of the playoffs by the Hawks a couple of years ago, when the Knicks finally made the playoffs for the first time in nearly a decade back in 2021. So Knicks Hawks tonight, big matchup, Dan. The Knicks, the Knicks schedule is very weird. Up until January, the Knicks play way more road games in November and December than they do home games. I think in December, I think they only have 3 home games the entire month. And then in January, they finally have a month where they're going to be home for a long period of time. I think in January, they only have 3 away games that whole month. So
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of road games between now and New Year's.
Yeah, it's a weird schedule. Hopefully, they get through the summer. I would love to see the Knicks win this game and make it. I feel like this game could make a statement. I feel like this win needs to be. They need to win this to right the ship. I feel like they need to win this.
Yeah, well, look, especially in the NBA, the first 10 games are really kind of figuring out what your team is all about, and how to run your team this year. And then after that, we'll see where Thibodeau takes them. But I agree with you. It's going to be, because look, the last win the Knicks got was against the Detroit Pistons, where they blew them out 128-98. As nice of a win as that was to see, nobody's going to take that win seriously because the Detroit Pistons stink. The Detroit Pistons will be lucky to win 12 games this year. The Knicks, on the other hand, are going to be a 50-plus win team, so you got to win that game. But especially against the Hawks tonight, who are not a good team either. They're not as bad as Detroit by any means, but they're still not a good team. And even on the road, the Knicks should be able to go out there and get that win.
Yeah, exactly. Go out there, win this, really make a statement. Also, I got to see one good thing they did right about the schedule. If I'm correct. Once again, they got the schedule right. The Knicks play on Christmas Day.
Yes, they do. I believe against the Milwaukee Bucks, but I'm not positive.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
yes.
But that's how it always needs to be. Just like football has. Even though I hate the Cowboys, they always know to have the Cowboys and the Lions play on Thanksgiving. NBA, you have the Knicks play on Christmas Day.
Yep, absolutely, Dan. And last but not least, we'll get to our Rangers here, my friend, as we're coming off a very nice Rangers victory on this Sunday, as the Rangers beat down the Islanders 5-2 on Sunday at Madison Square Garden. They improved to 8-2-1, and this team, Dan, isn't even rolling on all cylinders yet. They're off to a great start, but even as their star center Mika Zibanejad pointed out after that game, hey, we're 8-2-1, and we haven't even played our best hockey yet. So that leaves you with something to be pretty proud of with this Rangers team.
Yeah, I just feel like this team that's kind of something to see, that this team's got off to start. And he said we're still not like that. So this team is right there on the cusp of firing all cylinders. I feel like they needed to get kind of start getting going, and they're getting going. It's gonna be big. Like I was stoked about this win, being able to just brag to one of my uncles who's an Islander fan, had the Rangers won. Like I was just happy to just laugh at him after this win.
Yeah, it was definitely a nice win to rub into your Islander fan friends, as the Rangers really controlled this thing from start to finish. The Islanders are, they're a decent team, but even Sorokin, who is a very good goalie, could not overcome the defensive deficiencies the Islanders had in that game, and the Rangers ended up putting up 5 on them. So that was a nice win for the Rangers. 2 more points in their back pocket, and also too, the Rangers getting a little more healthy as Jimmy Vesey returned to the lineup after getting injured near the end of training camp, and he returns, and sticking him on that fourth line. Now you got Sam Carrick on that fourth line, who, let's be honest, he's a vet that's been in the league for a few years. Rangers got him from the Edmonton Oilers last year. He played the Stanley Cup final with them. So it's a guy that's definitely got experience on the fourth line there. But you also have a rookie in Adam Edstrom being on his left wing there. So you add a grizzled vet like Jimmy Vesey, who's played up and down the lineup. He's played in the first line, he's played in the second line, he's played in the third line, and he's played in the fourth line. Sticking him out there really provides that extra leadership boost to that fourth line and helps bring them along a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. I got to give credit to that. This team is even stronger. Like, I just feel like this team's gonna be something special. They just giving me the vibes of a team that has unfinished business. That's what this team's giving me a vibe. Like, I feel like this is going to be another one that's going to be a big playoff run. That's going to be potentially they're a cup. I might as well say it. The Rangers are a cup contender. I feel like.
Oh, they're definitely a cup contender, no doubt about it.
Yeah, they are a cup contender, and this is going to be a fun hockey season once again as a Ranger fan watching this whole playoff run. And not only that, from what I gather, and hopefully they even get all the way to the Cup Finals, because what I gather is that because TNT is going to be doing the Cup Finals, because of that, Kenny Albert would be doing the games because he's one of the main guys at TNT that'd be doing the Cup Finals. He could potentially have Sam Rosen do the Cup, be in the radio booth for the Cup Finals.
Very interesting.
And
Very
that could mean being able to chance to mute the TV feed and have the radio feed and hear Sam Rosen get to go out, getting the call, hopefully getting to be able to call another Stanley Cup run.
Well, let's hope, Dan. That's a long way off, though. But it all starts tomorrow. Yeah.
Yep. And I know it's a little far ahead of us, us making playoffs, but this year I actually decided to do. I'm gonna call back to this if we make the playoffs. I'm gonna do a little something different. How I usually don't shave. I'm actually gonna leave it up to a fan poll at the start of the playoffs if I do the playoff beard or not.
Well, you gotta do the playoff beard. Come on.
Yeah, all right. If you say it, I'm gonna do it. I'll do it if we make the playoffs. Because I'm debating if it's gonna be effective this year. All right, I'll do it if we make the playoffs. I'll put the razor away for the duration of that. Hopefully, we'll be all the way until June. if we make from April to June, I'll facial hair from April to June.
And either way, Dan, it all starts tomorrow night or tonight if you're watching this on Thursday for the YouTube premiere. But tomorrow night it'll be Rangers versus Sabres at 7 p.m. Sabres are a dangerous team, so you can't take them lightly. They got a couple of young guys on there that have carried their play. They still haven't made the playoffs in a long time, but they're definitely a little bit of a dangerous team up there in Buffalo. So nice little test for the Rangers tomorrow at the Garden, and let's hope they can pull it off.
I just feel like as long as the Rangers take this matchup seriously, I feel like the Rangers are going to win this game.
Yeah, I feel like that too. But hey, you never know. There's a reason why they play them, Dan. And unfortunately, sometimes you don't win them all. But the Rangers should. I agree with you. They should be able to take care of business tomorrow. And with that, Dan, the only thing that's going to take it for us tonight on the Best Seat in the House podcast. But before we get out of here, do you have anything like to plug for yourself?
Sure, my Twitter account, Bobo103NYC, Instagram, Bobo718DK, and the same username on Threads. YouTube, it's one word, Daniel Curlin, where you can see all my YouTube content. Also, I'll be filming maybe tracks I've been at probably tomorrow morning, so all you Patreon subscribers, you'll get the tracks I've been, which is also a reminder to Patreon subscribers. You get 2 weeks access to most of my YouTube videos that I feel need to be, that are some of my really extra special YouTube videos that could fit for the 2 week access thing. The 2 weeks access to it. So you get that. You also get as I mentioned tracks I bid it, and you get to support the show. It's only $5 to support our Patreon. A round trip on a subway, $5 to support our Patreon, $5 a month to support our show. And
That's right.
also, it's one of the great deals one of the greatest deals in New York. You got that. And also don't forget our Twitter feeds. Don't forget our Twitter feeds.
BSith_podcast, and obviously our boy Bobo 103 NYC. My name Cramer NY. You can see that all on the bottom of the screen, along with Best Seat in the House podcast on Instagram. So thank you everybody for hanging out with us tonight again for another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host Rob Cramer with the great Daniel Bobo Curlin. We'll catch you on what's today? Wednesday. We'll catch you on Sunday on Patreon, but we'll be back here next week, same time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend, everybody. God bless America.
Yep, it's fun, Frank.